during a Christmas Eve video call with parents, someone said, "Let's go, Brandon," to President Joe Biden. This is a right-wing dog whistle for fuck Joe Biden. Do you think this is an outrage? Do presidents deserve a certain amount of respect due to their office? If so, does that hold true for President Trump as well? And credit to our buddy Counterpoints for helping come up with this topic. Much appreciated. So I'm gonna take myself off screen. We got enough people here, right? So you guys will handle this. I will step in to help, direct you all. But other than that, I'll keep quiet. So let's do it. We will start with Jay. Jay, please, your introduction.
Yeah, this was a good topic. I think honestly it was kind of blown out of proportion. I don't think it's a big deal. Like, presidents get made fun of all the time. Does he deserve the respect that he does because he's the president? Yes. Because he's the president, like, you should respect the president. If you're American, just period, point blank. But at the same time, like, this isn't the first time that this has happened, right? Like, Charlemagne, less than a week ago or in the same week, had asked Kamala Harris, like, oh, who's the real president, right? And that didn't get nearly enough media attention as this did. Does it hold true for Trump? Nah, I would say no. It's a little bit different, but we can get into that.
Thank you. Spectre.
Right, so at first the "Let's Go Brandon" thing, like when it was first done in that NASCAR fucking interview, that was a little bit funny to me, right? But then I started seeing conservatives on the internet act like, oh, this is what we have to say in order to avoid losing our jobs for saying fuck the president, and this is what we have to say to avoid, like, being censored for saying fuck the president. Like, fuck Joe Biden. Okay, I'm all right. Nothing has happened.
Hello. Hi. Hello. Hi.
I was about to say, am I the only one?
Oh, okay.
I saw people laughing, and I was like, wait a second. Did my sound? Okay, I'm so glad.
So,
yeah. No. YG and Nipsey Hussle had a whole goddamn song. A whole fucking song called Fuck Donald Trump. And it was a banger. It did numbers. Like, I'm sorry.
I'm so confused.
I know that you, like, cream your pants over...
Sorry, Spectre. I think your mic is going out.
Oh, fucking A.
Perfect.
Okay.
He's getting you. You're trying to tell us there's no consequences, and he's getting you.
You actually can't say fuck Joe Biden, or the CIA will take out your mic on Discord calls. No, seriously, this is
apparently
ridiculous to me. You can just say it. Like I said, I don't know if this came through. YG and Nipsey Hussle had a whole song, "Fuck Donald Trump." It's a goddamn banger. Did numbers.
Okay. We got it. Thank you so much.
No one gets it yet.
Yeah, no. Why were you laughing, Jay? That's what confused me. I thought I couldn't hear it because you were laughing.
No, I was laughing at the comedic timing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced.
Totally on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I at this point, I'm not sure if you can say fuck Joe Biden without consequences. So Spectre has confused the shit out of me. So no, all right. So conservatives typically, or they're supposed to be, right? Supposed to be. They're supposed to be the people who have, like, they don't cuss as much and they take care of their family and family values and this, that, the other. And so I do appreciate the lefty argument of, like, hey, don't be a pussy. Just say it with your chest. Like, I appreciate that. I think that's true to a certain extent. But I also think that it's kind of fucked up and stupid that we're talking about, like, lack of decorum and this, that, the other. And then what? Donald Trump gets elected, and you're saying fuck the president of the United States? This is where I'm going to call conservatives out a little bit hypocritically. It's like, what has Joe Biden done specifically? Maybe we can get into like COVID shit. What has he done specifically policy-wise that you resent, that you think is terrible? And I would actually like to hear those arguments, because frankly, at least from my perspective, I think he ate some ice cream and gave some people some checks. And that's about it. So why are we being pissy? Why are we being rude? Why are we falling down this, like, shitty rabbit hole where we no longer respect the office of the president? So I'll leave it there and we can get it in the open.
Joe Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, there's something, I guess, that comes with like respecting a figure of authority. I think it's probably where respect may come from individuals. But by and large, for me, respect is earned from all individuals. So it's not just exclusively the president; it goes all the way down to even like your neighbors and stuff like that. For me, and that's obviously going to vary from individual to individual. Personally, I don't really think the "Let's go, Brandon" phrase has anything to it. Obviously, there are professional consequences if you say things like "fuck the president of the United States" or "fuck Joe Biden," "fuck Donald Trump." Like, depending on where you are professionally, you may see repercussions for that. Like, obviously, as a teacher, you can't just say "fuck Joe Biden" in a classroom. Obviously, curriculum speech still exists. Now, with that being said, I guess like that's really all I got is that, like, to Connor's point, like, yeah, let's like talk about the things that we might feel that Biden's done well, what Biden hasn't done well. I don't know, this like continuation of like looking back to Donald Trump and comparing him to Joe Biden. I was like, would you be okay with this under Donald Trump and this, right? It's kind of boring to me at this point.
JChao.
So, the "Let's Go Brandon" being a right-wing dog whistle, it's pretty bad at being a dog whistle considering that everybody knows what it means. We've all been saying it, "fuck Joe Biden." And considering that a lot of people who aren't on the right also will say "fuck Joe Biden" or "Let's go Brandon," people who are leftists, Marxists, whatnot, it's kind of reductionist that like we kind of put that as a label on the right. But is it like the worst thing to happen? I mean, I would say it's kind of funny. It's a meme, honestly. It's not productive, and that's where the humor is that now we here have like to what Connor and Joe just said before. I agree that, yeah, let's actually talk about where are Joe Biden's faults, where are his pros, like how has his administration been doing for like this past year and whatnot. But for the most part, I'm willing to bet that the people who are screaming "Let's go Brandon" and thinking that they have some sort of a own, I don't think they have those kinds of arguments. I think it's a lost cause.
Okay. Thank you. Blay.
Yeah, I guess I have a really simple take here. People based on their office don't really command authority or respect unless that respect is earned. I mean, there's prestige that comes with the title of president, absolutely, 100%. But the way a person handles things in office is whether their respect is earned or not. Personally, I'm pro-Joe. I'm quite pro-Joe, actually, with some of the policies he's pushed in the last year or so with his administration. There's been some great stuff done, some not so great stuff done, some stuff he could do better. But I will say at the very least, in terms of titles, they are not worthy of the respect that we think they are, because traditionally this respect is unwarranted when it comes with just a specific title, as opposed to a person's actions and the type of policy they implement or the type of impact they have on the world around us. And that's exactly what I think is earns respect for Biden, at least, for me anyways. He might not be the greatest president of all time, but he's certainly an improvement.
Okay, thank you. And just pause right there for a second. You can't see him on the stream, but I'm saying thank you, the serfs, being so kind as to rate us of 204 people. Really, really kind. Hello, everyone. Again, you can't see me, but it's not important. Pretend I'm the handsome guy on the lower right hand side of the corner. Yeah, that guy who was pretend I'm him. It's a better image for me. But yeah, so my name is Prime, and I do these panel type things that you see here, right? This is a open, or this is a closed panel, right? An invite only thing. We talk about all kinds of subjects. It's a lot of fun. We yell at each other. We're just talking about the "Let's Go Brandon" meme that happened. Someone called that to Joe Biden to his face during a video call, right? We're talking about should presidents be respected, and we'll talk about all kinds of other subjects as well. We also have open panels where you can join in, you can be a part of it, right? So stick around. If anything interests you, if anything interests you at all, hit that follow button, make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live, all right? So just so you know, I am here. I am a mysterious voice here, but hit that follow button. We'd love to have you here in the future. Again, thank you, the sirs, for the really, really kind raid. All right, awesome. In fact, let's go to that beautiful person who was that lower right-hand corner. Captain A. Jones, what do you think about all this?
Butter me up. I love getting compliments.
Why did my voice change? I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, like in terms of like a random person calling in to essentially say fuck Joe Biden to their face, I think that's pretty fucking rude. Like, even if I met Donald Trump, I think he's the fucking devil. I would, if I was, gonna be posing in a photo op. I don't know how that would happen, but like I'm posing in a photo op for him because I'm on like a fucking field trip as a kindergartner, clearly that I am. And like I'm gonna shake his hand. You know what I mean? I'm gonna give, like, it's not even respect. I don't even know if I consider it respect because I don't think I respect Donald Trump. I don't respect his views or what he is or what he stands for or anything. But yeah, I think it was very not classy of this guy to come out and just say fuck Joe Biden to his face. And of course, Joe Biden didn't get it, so he's like, yeah, let's go, Brandon. Haha. But also, like, here's one thing I don't get about Let's Go Brandon. It started off as like an NBC reporter. An NBC reporter, right-wingers taking what an NBC reporter said and turning it into, I don't know. It just feels really weird. It seems like a stupid own, like a wannabe own. And by the way, Boji, holy fuck. You're fucking awesome.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Much appreciate much appreciated. Thank you, Boji. Thank you, LJ Steele. Thank you, Amanda Smash, and then more Boji. For all the subs, we have a hype train going on, right? So assist the channel if you like the content. We haven't given you any real content yet. We're just about to, I swear to God. But if you want to hop out the channel, want to see more of this in the future, invest in the channel right now. Gift subs, gift bits, or consider subbing yourself. Get our emotes in chat, exclamation emotes for the emotes that you get. But yeah, help out the channel. We're at level 3 hype train now, 19% done, 81% left. Can we get to level 4 hype train? Help out the hype train, help out the community. Means a lot when you do so, right? Sub, gift bits, or gift subs. Or resub, right? If you got a resub, use those, that counts too. Continue your sub if you got a gift sub, all that helps out. So all right, we're gonna continue all the content, but we have less than 4 minutes left. Let's see if we can get to a level 4 hype train. This is a possibility. Help us out. Sub, gift subs. All right, next we'll go to our Dark Lord and Savior Doobie.
Yeah, I don't think this is that big a deal. It's not classy, I guess, but who gives a fuck? I think if you hate Joe Biden, hate Donald Trump, and you have the opportunity to tell them to their earboxes directly that you hate them, that they're a piece of shit, I mean, why not take the opportunity? I guess you could be a beta like Mr. Jones here, Private Jones, and just shake his hand anyway, even though you think he's a devil and he's like, putting kids in cages and shit. But that seems like a bitch move. I think if you hate the dude, tell me you hate him, whatever. And just kind of like answer Connor's question, I think, let's say someone's like totally against vaccine mandates, right? The Biden administration is pushing vaccine mandates, right? I think they've got plenty of reason to say fuck Joe Biden. I think that's fine. So I don't think it's the end of the world. I think people trying to make this seem like it's a huge deal are just kind of being pro clutchers, and at the end of the day, it's doesn't really fucking matter.
Thank you. And thank you, Anonymous Grifter, for the 5 subs. Thank you, then another sub, so 6 subs. Anarchist Weasel for 100 bits, and Boji for yet another sub. Oh man, you guys are being so kind today. We're at 87% of a level 3 hype train, 88%, 12% left. 2.5 minutes on the clock. Can we get to level 4? We're almost there. Let's see if we can make it happen. Tiberius D, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to take this from a completely different angle, and I've got 2 parts. The first part is there's very few things that I actually legitimately love about my country, but the tradition and the viewpoint of freedom of speech, but also the freedom of political speech and the traditions that we've actually held, not only in policy, but also all the way up to the Supreme Court, where we've openly said, to points where I question it, that you have the right to freedom of speech in the regards that you can say almost anything politically and get away with it here in the country. And that's something I actually love, because that's something that most governments do not take seriously. If not, they'll beat you in the head with a hammer. On the other side of that, is this something that I think honors the spirit of it? No, this isn't. what I think that actual freedom is supposed to be for is to be like, hey, not that fuck you, Joe Biden, I hate you. It's, hey, Joe, I need to tell you something. You're screwing me over. Your green energy policies are destroying my coal jobs that keep my family fed. So fuck you. That's what I think it's legitimately there for. I don't think this is the proper use of that idea, but you know, that's just in general where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Anarchist Weasel, for gifting a sub. Thank you. And then thank you, Speaks Minds, for subbing yourself. Awfully kind of you. Speaks Minds, nice to meet you. Thank you for the sub. And Zonia Dead, who's been incredibly kind to the community, has gifted 2 subs, putting us at level 4 hype train. 20% down, 80% left. Can get to a level 5 hype train? Is it a possibility at the beginning of the show? That'd be great. I'm gonna have to do it later on. 80% left. Let's see if we get to level 5 hype train. Please, please, please. 1.5 minutes on the clock. Sub channel, gift bits, or gift subs, all that good stuff. Large, medium, small donors, all of you help out. You make this a possibility. Okay, we're gonna get to the content right now. I'll just in chat. I'll be like, hey, hype up the train. Yeah, we'll give you content. Go ahead.
Right, Connor, I've got to know, because it's been bugging me since you said that you had a contention with this. What are the consequences for saying fuck Joe Biden? Except for like the scenarios that like, you know, Joe Lewis laid out, where if you're a teacher, you can't say it to your students. Obviously, if you're a member of the military, you can't speak disparagingly about like the commander in chief. But aside from that, this just seems like more of the like Republican fetish of like being victimized that they have. Like the guy who called in to say it to the president himself, the "Let's Go Brandon" meme, is now claiming that like he's receiving death threats, which like honestly, Pixar didn't happen, bro.
Yeah, so my thing is like I see this confluence of the internet meme and real life, basically. And even like AOC, I think is like, I don't want to say boys with like Hassan Piker, but they've at least been friendly a couple of times, right? So are we okay with this trend of online and real space kind of commingling? And are we okay with like the future president of the United States being like, hey, listen, I'm as pro-capitalist as the next guy, but have you heard Vosh's argument about coconuts? Like that's what's coming down the pipe, where there was a certain amount of decorum that was expected, and it seems like it's just being eroded further and further and further and further. So I'm basically asking, is everybody cool with it?
Yeah, I mean,
Let me
I'm
ask
fine
you
with it, but
something,
I was
Connor.
saying specifically, you said that there is an issue with saying fuck Joe Biden, but it sounds like I misunderstood. Like you agree that you can just say fuck Joe Biden and nothing terrible is probably going to happen to your life, right? Like this idea that the conservatives online have come up with, where it's like, oh, we have to mask it with like, let's go Brandon, otherwise we might get like life canceled and lose our jobs, is fucking ridiculous.
I think that what that more is like, so for instance, like I have conservative family. They don't like using profanity. They don't like it that I use profanity, but they do have strong political opinions, right? I think that Let's Go Brandon allows these people who have strong political opinions but don't like using profanity, think it fucking rots your brain, like all that kind of shit. I think it lets them play in the internet meme game, right? And so that's kind of my thing, where it's like, for me, it could be cutesy, it could be fun. I don't really give a shit. But you were kind of bringing up like pearl clutching. What's weird to me is the pearl clutchers are the ones who are doing it. They're the people who elected Donald Trump. They're the people who are saying fuck Joe Biden / let's go Brandon. They're the people who are fucking complaining about the cultural fucking degradation of our society, and yet they're insisting that this is a positive meme, whereas I see it as a continued slide into the rhetorical muck. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've read like 4 tweets today that basically said, like, yeah, this is what we have to do because we're avoiding like getting caught. I think that it's really clever that we've come up with this, right?
Yeah,
I don't
super
think you're being
clever if you're a fucking toddler. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'll say it with you. Fuck Joe Biden. It's not difficult. I used to think Let's Go Brandon is funny. I'll say that with you too. I mean, I don't give a shit, but like this idea that you're avoiding some kind of like repercussions for saying fuck the president. We're not in North Korea. Like, you can do what you want. Nobody cares.
Yeah, but like, so sorry, go ahead, buddy.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think you hit it on the head, at least for me, Connor. Like, the thing that I didn't like about the guy saying "Let's go, Brandon" to the president over the phone, to the president's face, essentially, was that it broached like the decorum that we are supposed to kind of give people in places of respect, and I think that the White House still has that. And like going back to like my example, I would still shake Donald Trump's hand or whatever. Like there is a level of respect that I'm going to give to basically everybody. And I don't know. I almost don't want to call it respect, but
Yeah,
so
because
that's why I don't
it's not
like
respect.
what this fucking guy did.
But why would you do that if you think
It's
he's literally
decorum.
the devil?
It's decorum.
Why?
No,
That's
it's not
why?
even decorum either. Hold on, Doobie.
It's
I
common
just
human
need to get this
courtesy.
out there, okay? I want to make this part of the panel as boring as possible, okay? So I'm just gonna get it out of the way, okay? The reason why it's not respect is because you don't have to respect Joe Biden to have good manners to him. You don't have to respect a stranger to hold a door for them. Like, that's kind of the level that I'm putting this on. Is that, like, if I don't hold the door open for somebody who is, like, coming out or in and, like, I'm just there, like, is it the worst thing to happen? It's like, no. Am I going to get condemned for it socially? No. It's just not like that. But it's just, like, a good thing to do. It's just
they're not a
good manner
stranger.
thing to think.
Yeah, but if
they're
the
not a
stranger, if the
stranger.
stranger
Okay,
is
okay,
Donald
okay,
Trump,
okay. Oh,
right,
no,
and
no,
he-
no.
and
Still
you
hold the
get
door
putting
open
babies
for
in
Donald
cages
Trump.
and shit,
I need to
or
calm
he's
down.
Joe Biden, you're upset that he's forcing the
it's not-
vaccine on
okay,
people.
it's-
Why
that's
the
just
fuck
an
would you hold a
example.
door
It's
for
just
him?
an example, okay? If you're so hung up about the word stranger in what I just used, okay, you
No, I'm not hung up about the word stranger. I'm hung up about the analogy that you're using because it requires it to be a stranger for it to make sense. Like, let's take this.
my
I'm already
God.
going to bring out.
It's
I'm
the
already going to
same-
bring out the hit.
I'm
No,
just
no.
putting it at
Let me
the
finish.
same level
Chill,
as
chill,
that.
chill. I was
It's
very
not an
quiet while you were talking.
analogy.
I was very quiet while you were talking. It's okay. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and bring out the analogy. We're already going to go there this panel. If it's Adolf fucking Hitler, right? You want me to have fucking manners about that? Or I get to tell you, hey, fuck you, Hitler. And by the way, maybe it's not classy, but if I ever had the opportunity to, I would say fuck you to Donald Trump as well. Why? Because he's not a stranger. He is a politician who did like actual things as a politician that had a negative impact on like people that I care about in my life. So I'm going to tell him to go fuck himself.
So
Right.
I can almost completely agree with that, but I don't think that it's productive, and I don't think it's fair, and I hate Donald Trump. I don't think he did good things. I think almost all of his policies were bad, but as a fellow Jewish person, I have to say I don't like comparisons for Donald Trump to Hitler. I like more. Hold on, I like more of the comparisons to Mussolini, but that's where the analogy definitely breaks down. I'm not going to hold the door open for Hitler, or Mussolini, I guess, for that matter. Yes, there is definitely a line that gets that is crossed. But then again, I really hope Hitler would not become president of the United States. Jesus fucking Christ, me saying that, and now I'm scared. Where's Wood? I'm fucking knocking on that shit.
Okay, but
Yeah,
my
I'm just
overarching
saying-
question is, are we comfortable with this blend of like digital space and real space? Because that's what we're talking about
Yeah.
here. We're talking about like the memes bleeding over into real life, where the meme magic, we talked about that in like 2016 and 2017, where meme magic helped propel Donald Trump into the presidency. It doesn't seem like these things are stoppable. So I'm trying to be like more descriptive. I'm just saying like what's our level of comfort here? Because for instance, like I could see. Let's face it, Joe Biden's brain is quickly turning into soup by the day. The dude is literally just eating mint chocolate chip ice cream until he fucking dies. Like, that, good for him. But at the same time, like, we're going to have presidents who are going to lean into this shit. We are going to have like a Kekistani president in 30 years. We're going to have a fucking a president who says, let's go Brandon, not because he thinks because he doesn't understand it, but because he actually thinks it's a joke and he wants to use it to tell his own opponent to go fuck himself. So that's kind of what I'm saying. This is the door that we're opening up here by not having any standards as far as public discourse goes.
Yeah, I think that's totally fine. I really.
Of
I mean,
course you do.
people make
Okay,
this.
I'm the only pearl
people.
clutcher.
Hold
I
on,
got
people
it.
say that like, yeah, I think you're being a little bit of a pearl clutch right now. But I don't. People say, oh, well, the internet in real life. The internet is real life. It's where a lot of people spend most of their fucking time. I mean, most of the socialization comes from the internet. That makes you sad. I'm sorry. That is what it is, right? So I don't really think there's a distinction for most people. And yeah, I think that given that the internet is such a powerful force in our day-to-day lives, I think it totally makes sense for the memes to become reality and bleed into politics. Why wouldn't they?
Hey, Connor, I just want to let you know, I'm pretty close to where you are. I just don't think it's not going to lead to the slippery slope that you're making it sound like. Like, I don't think this is going to be leading to the destruction of our country just because our discourse is going in this sort of type of direction now. Like, would I prefer that? Absolutely not. Myself, okay, being a little bit pretentious, I want our country to be that of like an intellectual one, where we're able to actually think and argue, and then to perform the real democratic processes that we want it to be, right? And we're not really going to be getting that if all we're just going to be saying is one side saying let's go Brandon, and then the other side is saying fuck Donald Trump. There's not really a lot of policy prescriptions there.
But that wasn't really a debate space, right? This was some stupid Christmas special thing, right? It's not really a stage in which he can engage in debate with Joe Biden on policy. So what's wrong with just saying fuck you?
Coming, though?
Like what's a space where just random people can engage with debate with the president? I hope so. That'd be cool.
Yeah, like actually Charlemagne the God. That was the other example that was brought up. He basically said, like, correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody's absolutely going to have to correct me. But wasn't he literally like, hey, Joe Biden promised this, and this, and that isn't really happening. What the fuck is going on? And Kamala Harris basically had to chew his ass and say, hey, you're sounding like a Republican. You need to shut the fuck up. So that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah,
the president or is Joe Biden?
Yeah,
which was actually based.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, hold on. Was that the one that she specifically was saying, or like she was saying, you're sounding like a Republican?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And the big issue that he had was that it's very clear that there's one individual with an obstruction in his eyes, and that individual is Joe Manchin. And then with his frustration, even though, like, again, to make it clear to set the floor, Charlemagne's a fucking asshole, so he'll do this in every interview. Like, look at how he walked basically Travis Scott into his own shit takes. Like, it's very clear that he's an asshole in interviews. But with that being said, it was very clear that his frustration was with Joe Manchin, and he wanted Kamala Harris to be, like, essentially on the political record saying that this individual was the problem for the obstruction. And then obviously she was choosing not to do that and basically trying to move to the best of her ability out of that.
Right. So, but that's my point, is that like we are going to have these increasing breakdowns where like the mainstream media, I don't know if we brought that up yet, but the mainstream media typically curates these narratives. They pull their punches. They put out the talking points of the upper class. And the more that we do these live streams, the more that we do these conversations that are kind of like free form and this, that, the other, this is going to be kind of where we're at. So the question is, do we try to enforce some kind of like cultural narrative amongst the plebs, us plebs, who like talking about dick sucking and coconuts? Do we enforce some kind of like level of decorum, or do we just say, fuck it, this is what real politics is? This is what real democracy is.
Fuck,
Well, I
is this
think
what you're prescribing?
Yeah.
I just want to be clear on that. Like, are you just posing the question, or are you implying that you
I'm more posing the question. I would like a more decorum society, but considering I say like shit, cock, balls, cunt, asshole, bitch like all day long for people's entertainment, I could be persuaded that maybe this is the way that we're going, regardless of whether or not I want to, and it could be fun.
Yeah,
Wait,
so
Wait, you're
can I
not
answer
a
you
politician though. There's been
answer
plenty
you?
of people
But
throughout all of history.
that's what I'm saying. Like that's where politics is going to go. Like,
Yeah, Connor, can I answer you real quick there?
please.
All right, so I think my take here is that honestly, politics being the thing that it is, it has the power to change people's lives, right? I really think we need to understand that politics is such a nitty-gritty thing, which actually has real implications to it, where we should be able to say whatever the fuck we want. Sometimes Bosch's coconut analogy has merit to it. That's why he uses it when he's on stream, because it pushes a point to people. The thing we're trying to do here is use rhetoric to convince people of our positions. So decorum sounds nice, courtesy sounds nice, and prestige all sounds nice, but politics is a sphere where people are like actually truly and really affected by it. It's not something we can just dress up in a bow and put on a stage for people. And if it takes me to say, if it takes me to say fucking shitballs to get someone to vote a good way, to get a good policy passed, then I'm absolutely going to do it, because I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. What gets done?
I think
so
my
what
parents
gets
would be
done when
horrified,
somebody
but I think
says
you're
let's go
right.
Brandon or
Yeah,
fuck Joe Biden? What gets done?
Yeah. What gets done with saying that? I mean, okay, so you have to understand that people are using their, again, like, right to free speech to express how they feel about a politician. And yeah, basic human courtesy is a nice thing and all, but when you think about these politicians, think about what Donald Trump did during his term. He did some awful shit that really impacted the lives of people around the country. So the fact that people have the right to go up to him and say, fuck Donald Trump is a good thing. I mean, obviously, basic human courtesy is nice, but when you get to a level of where someone didn't extend that basic human courtesy to you, which is what a lot of these mainstream politicians do with the policies they pass, they shit all over the common man. Of course, we're going to have to fucking shit on them back. We need to let them know they're not in charge. We're in charge. This is a democracy we live in.
So, Dylan, do you support the idea?
Well, 5 seconds. Like, let's be clear, because I think that a lot of people have forgotten how like heinous this man and his administration was, like for certain people, right? I had a friend like lose their life as a direct result of the anti-trans housing policies that was passed by Ben Carson and Donald Trump, where they instructed like the people that worked at homeless shelters how to clock trans women and throw them the fuck out. Okay? Like, after getting kicked out of so many homeless shelters, like this individual whom I was friends with took their life. If I see Donald Trump, I get to say, fuck you, buddy. Like, and I think there are a lot of people who probably feel that way. And I think that that's a very justified way to feel. So,
Yeah,
like,
the thing
this
is,
idea that we gotta tell people to police their fucking language. Like, average people aren't politicians. They can talk how they want to.
No one here is asking people to police language.
Wait, so
nobody
no,
even
no.
answered it. Okay, no one's.
Wait, I need to come in here. Yeah, so we're not trying to police language here. What we're trying to do is talk about actual implications of things, right? Fuck Joe Biden doesn't carry a strong weight to it when it's said, but it is an expression of emotion, right? So of course we're gonna have to express our emotions at the people who are literally directly involved in our lives. And I think what it comes down to is making some sort of type of I guess I'd call it a utility calculation, and whether we need to treat people with basic human courtesy. Because like we were talking about earlier, Mussolini, I would not treat Mussolini with common human courtesy. I'd spit all over him. I'd see him in public, hawk a fat loogie in his face because he's a dickhead. Same thing goes for Donald Trump, honest to God. His policies were terrible. They impacted the lives of millions of people. So yeah, I feel really comfortable saying fuck Donald Trump.
But let's talk about restraint. Sorry, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, so let's say, do you think that there's a utility in reappropriating the language? Like, let's go, Brandon?
I think there's certain utility for that, but that mostly has an implication on an individual level, right? If these conservatives their lives are impacted, right? Then I think it's important that they redirect their language.
Let's say I am a lawmaker and I decide to write a bunch, and again, I'm just gonna paint it really clear too. Let's say I'm a right-wing politician, and I openly campaign in Brandon, Florida, and everybody within Brandon, Florida starts chanting "Let's go, Brandon" in Brandon, Florida for the legislation that I'm introducing. Is that something that you think is politically advantageous?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. If you're, I mean, not just on your political campaign, right? But if you're talking about your actual campaign itself, that has like a double entendre effect, right? And so when you say "Let's go, Brandon" in Brandon, Florida, it's like a rally cry. And to the people that get it, it's also like a fuck the opposition statement. I think that that's valid. I think that's what it comes down to. So, I mean, in terms of like political discourse, I guess I'm a bit of a Machiavellian at heart. But, you know, I think it comes down to if the ends justify the means, and that's a really simple means to use to get there.
Do you think is that something you agree with, Connor?
No, absolutely not. The
just
question,
to be clear, just to set the floor, Ron DeSantis did that with 4 anti-mandate bills in Florida, in Brandon, Florida. He signed them in Brandon, Florida. So that's just something that wasn't hypothetical. That's reality.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point, is that so now we have an elected official encouraging his audience to say fuck Joe Biden, this, that, the other. This is increasing to the polar schism in our society. If you think that we deserve this polar schism and we should just go at each other's throats, that's perfectly fine. I don't give a shit. Like, we can go that way. But this is what I'm saying. Like, you got to realize what you're asking for. Okay. And I'm not even asking for censorship. I'm not asking whether or not the state should fucking do it. I'm asking if you, as individuals, as members of the public, should decide whether or not this is the kind of behavior that you want to participate in, and whether or not it's the behavior that you want to fucking encourage in the audience. There's probably a few hundred to maybe a few thousand people in here, and basically what everybody has said is, yeah, politics is politics, baby. Fuck these motherfuckers. You want to say whatever you want, you say whatever you want. That's basically what everybody's said so far. So I'm just saying.
Yes,
no,
yes,
not really, Connor.
You know what?
As I said before, I'm close to you.
Wait, yeah, okay. So what I'm gonna do
so
here
is JChao or by ourselves.
All right. So I guess the thing is I'll bite the bullet and say, go ahead, say whatever you want to a politician if they've commanded a level of subhuman respect for the consequences of their actions in your lives. Absolutely. I pride myself on unity. I pride myself on brotherhood. Bratsivo I Živinsivo. It's Croatian for brotherhood and unity. Peep the flag. Yeah. I totally LARP there, and I don't care. But what I will say right now is courtesy should not be given to the people who fuck us all over in the long run. So I have no reason to agree with that sentiment whatsoever.
But not everybody agrees with that sentiment or thinks that's like an appropriate way to.
Some people think that trans people should die. I know, it's sad.
Yeah, Connor, I'm not going to tell people what to
We're
think.
talking
I don't
about
care what
Biden
other
right
people.
now. You need to pick a lane.
Yeah. So the thing is, I'm going to say it right now. I don't care what other people think. I write you wrong. End of story. There we go. But really, what I'm going to come at this with is...
Hold on, Dylan, can you say that again?
Yeah. So in terms of what people say and how it affects political discourse, if someone is wrong about something, like Connor said, people feel a certain way, their emotions get, rattled with or razzled. This is what it sounds like to me. People feel a certain way about decorum in politics. I don't give a shit about that. Politics is real life. So what I'm going to come out here and do is say whatever I need to get my message across.
Okay, but so here's the thing. We're all, this is my liberal shit coming out, okay? This is my lib shit. What you say is good for your enemies is also good for you. So that's what I'm really saying here is, do you want this to be the political norm where we've devolved politics into fuck the other people, and this is what we want to encourage in the body politic? You're saying Machiavellianism rules, whoever's in power, awesome, this, that, the other. But basically, I mean, I think I remember from our previous conversation that you're left wing. You typically don't win. So are you okay with conservatives just fucking, hey, fuck you, leftist, you fucking piece of shit? Because it kind of is what's already happening, but is that what you want to be the norm?
Yeah, people are entitled to their opinions. I can't regulate that. What I can do is try to use the best arguments I can come up with to get people to agree with me. But people are always going to have these preconceived notions in their head about their opposition. And of course, they're going to say, fuck my opposition. Their opposition's values are antithetical to theirs. So I don't blame these people, and I don't think it's morally reprehensible for that. Polarity is not always a bad thing. There's always parts of opposites and certain skirmishes and conflicts.
Polarity on your microphone is really bad. Okay, that's what's bad.
What the fuck's happening to my microphone?
You're good.
You were talking shit about Machiavellianism and fucking the CIA hacked you.
I guess. I don't know.
Those bastards. But what I'm saying here is, basically, people fucking hate each other with their opposition, and people who stand antithetical to their values and have certain fucking things that are going to like destroy or ruin their lives. I think it's absolutely warranted to just come out and say fuck the opposition.
Let's go on, Joe Lewis. Let's give it a try.
Yeah, no, I'm a little confused because we've seen time and time again, like, not to racialize this too deep, but we've seen time and time again of right-wingers misinterpreting what black radicals have said to paint them as either anti-white or overtly racist. We saw this with the president of the NAACP in Fairfax, where she was ranting about the individuals who were rallying against anti-equity, anti-inclusion policies, and all of these things. And in her frustration, she said, let them die. She was forced to resign because of her language. And it was just on that. Nothing else in the context of what she said matters. It's very clear that an individual is on their phone right now. It's very clear that we have, especially those on the left, have to be careful with their language to kind of appeal to what Connor is saying, because there's still a level of optics. And I think it's very telling of your privilege to not regard optics in trying to get your message across in a way that encapsulates as many people as possible.
Yeah, and what I worry about is the escalation on both sides. I would hate to see this back and forth of terrible events committed by both left and right wing antagonists. I don't think it serves nobody to do these kind of violent actions that we're talking about. So.
Doesn't serve our brain cells either. I would want to have the kinds of conversations that Connor before was talking about. Let's actually talk about what Joe Biden has done good. Where has he done bad? We could actually have a meaningful discussion that has some implications on how we're going to be voting in the next election cycle and the next presidential cycle, correct? But we can't do that if everybody's just going to be yeah, fuck you, fuck me. This is just my feelings. They're valid. Okay, moving on. Screw you.
I will say
we
that
live in a polar world. Oh yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I will say, JChao, to your point, unfortunately, like I do agree with you, but unfortunately, it's not an attention grabber to the American public to talk about policy.
Not just that. I need to say something else here too. I need to get in here really quickly. When we're talking about like civility and discourse and things like that, sometimes it takes like extreme, like attention grabbing language to get people's attention, to make like, I don't think people on the right are bad people by any stretch. I think they might be misguided. I disagree with their takes on policy for sure. But I will say the things they're advocating for are bad in my opinion. And if it takes me, going fuck Donald Trump to get their attention or whatever it takes, then yeah, I'm going to absolutely go ahead and make that statement. We can sit down and have civil discourse after, but you have to have that attention grabber to get people riled around you, to settle down.
Yeah, but
and then to be able to talk.
Wait.
Well,
Did you
the
just say
left
that
has
you
had
wanted? Wait,
no
hold
problem.
on. Did you just say that you wanted to have discourse with the other side, like the polar opposite?
After the
Yes.
attention.
After the what would it be called? The instigation of like
Yes.
of inflammatory rhetoric to get their attention.
This isn't like,
Is
like
this
listen,
how,
I
is
guess
this how
this-
discourse is done? Do you think
I
you're
mean,
going to change
I
any
mean,
minds there?
like, it
This
works-
is
yes.
a for like.
No. I absolutely think that, because you know what? A lot of the time, just shaking hands and walking over across the political aisle doesn't get anyone's attention. You need to get people focused on you first. And if it means being loud, obnoxious, and disruptive, I'm going to do it. That's how I got in this conversation right now. Am I right? So what I
Well,
have to do
Marjorie
is I
Taylor
have to
Greene
get
did
up
it,
I
and
have
she
to
got
get out
stripped
there.
of her positions. So like we've seen
Right.
examples of like people in literal positions of power do these things in places that are not even near as far as they would really want to go, and they still get clapped by their own institution. So it seems
so
like
I guess what I'm trying to say here is we're talking about the common man, right? The person without the power. We need to get these people, at the forefront of the discourse, because a lot of these people are the people we relate to. A
And they
lot of
won't.
these people
They
have the
can't.
same stake
Okay.
in it as us.
they can't.
Okay, hold on.
They have to by being
Guys,
loud.
Dylan,
They've
okay,
been loud
we
for
get it.
years.
Yeah,
But
hold on,
since
Joe.
nothing's
Does anybody think that the left has a problem with aggressive rhetoric getting people's attention, or do we think that they have a fucking problem with the follow-up? Because that's my thing.
I just think
ACAB,
the-
Black Lives Matter, defund the police, all that kind of shit. It got plenty of attention, but there was no follow-up. There was no back-end like rhetorical goodwill to actually achieve a goal once attention had been gained. So
I bring this up
I would
time
say,
and time.
Dylan,
Sucks,
you need to
dude,
come
really?
my way.
I
Look,
bring
dude,
this up
that
time and
fucking
time
sucks, all.
again when I talk about like my sort of problems with the left, is that I think they're very bad at propaganda. And I think that when you have these opportunities to say your message in front of an audience of people, don't fall into the trap of answering stupid questions like condemning riots or condemning protests. Stick whatever you're there for, stick whatever you're trying to portray to people and trying to grab from your audience, and don't fall into these sort of reporter traps of reporters asking you, well, how did you feel about the riots in the city you don't even live in? Or how do you feel about what happened during January 6th? Like, the members of the Concerned Women of America could give zero fucks about what happened during January 6th. They just care about abortion. So if you bring any of those individuals into a conversation, they're going to spread their right-wing propaganda about abortion, and that's basically what they're going to double down on. My again, like to sort of TLDR this, is that I think by and large the left is very, very bad at propaganda when they're able to be put on these platforms, even after what Dylan is describing in terms of like getting the outrage and making it to the seat at the table. They get stuck at seat at the table trying to just defend themselves for whatever 8 minutes to 12 minutes they have without just staying on message. Like, we know like how effective staying on message is for the right. There's many examples of that, of right-wing commentators like sticking to their message when getting pushed back on an interviewer, pushed back on people on the panel, and they just stick locked onto it, to whatever their message might be within the topic.
Listen, Joe, that's all well and good, but have you ever considered the fact that the Democrats are bad?
Oh, trust me, I consider that fact every day, Connor, but I need to say this to you. It's those inflammatory statements like ACAB that grabbed people's attention to begin with. If I just,
and then there was no follow-up.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to remain agnostic on what to do once we get the attention, because I'm not a policy, I'm not some policy expert or anything. I'm just going to lift my hands up and say, leave it to the pros on that one. But what I will say is those are the kinds of statements that got us this seat at the table. Those are the kind of statements that got the progressive candidates into positions in office, because they endorsed the working class values.
Such as who?
So yeah,
Yeah,
when like the
who was
president
a
says
pro
Black
politician?
Lives Matters, yeah. So when like the president is, you know, agreeing with the sentiment of Black Lives Matter, that's a fucking great thing for the left. Okay,
But
Black
that
Lives
doesn't
Matter, same thing as
do
ACAB?
anything for Black communities
Yes.
in his entire presidency, and then diminishing the problems that exist within Black communities within the Department of Education, despite the fact that there is a
didn't
member
he
of
get
the
like
Department of
black
Education.
farmers prioritization for like fucking loans and shit? Like,
The USDA,
Yeah.
the USDA has been trashed for a vast majority of presidencies, and doing the bare minimum of just accepting and reading applications is something that I think any administration could easily do. Like Joe Biden's fucked it up, Donald Trump's fucked it up, Barack Obama fucked it up, and if I would argue anything that Joe Biden made it worse because he placed the exact same individual that fucked black farmers under Obama and put it under Biden. Like that makes no sense to me. Like you have an individual who was like not only optically and rhetorically but pragmatically insufficient with running the USDA and the Department of Agriculture, and then you just tap him for that exact same position that black farmers were frustrated on. That is some R-worded optics. Like I'm sorry, like I don't know how else to describe it.
Still stuck on Dylan going from ACAB to then like talking about how Biden is pro Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, so
the same thing.
Yeah, so there's
Like
this
a bit of
silly
not.
thing. There's this like really silly thing called hyperbole. But you know what? BLM is an inflammatory statement to some people.
No,
so the
it's
thing
not.
is absolutely
it's
is. Are you kidding?
inflammatory to
People
some
get-
people.
Yeah, people on the right get
The
butthurt
majority
when
of
people
this
say it all the
country is very
time.
positive, or like for the peak of
No,
like
there was
where it
reactionary.
it was very
There was straight up
positive.
reactionary movements against this. The whole all lives matter sentiment. That was a reaction
Well,
to
yeah,
Black
well, that's
Lives Matter
we're
because
a very
that sentiment
polarized
got out there.
country. You said so
Yeah,
yourself.
we are a
of course, there's
polarized-
going to be an
exact-
agreement and
Yes.
disagreement. Okay,
Yes,
but
I know
that
it.
doesn't make it.
So
That doesn't
you're-
make it inflammatory.
But JChao, wait, hold on. But if they're having this reaction when they're doing the All Lives Matter thing or saying BLM is a terrorist organization, why would you, if you can acknowledge that that's going on, why would you disagree with him saying that it's inflammatory to some people?
No, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, of course
what
it's
I
fucking
disagree with,
inflammatory.
I think you're jumping the shark a little bit.
It's because it's inflammatory to some people. It as a whole is inflammatory.
Yeah, so
But
it being inflammatory to
a lot of people
large
can, like,
demographic in the
we could all
country is
point to-
absolutely important to point out. And the fact that we got the president of the United States of America to agree with that sentiment, despite whether you think his policy decisions or not were good for the black community, we're not really discussing this right now. I thought we were just going to talk about the inflammatory sentiments. Either way, there's some good things he did do for the black community, like his executive order to, again, cancel the opening of private prisons, things like
But
that.
Dylan, this is my thing. I am perfectly comfortable with you saying that some level of inflammatory language is necessary in order to get people on board with your message and in order to get political attention. I think that that's a perfectly rational statement to make. But my point is, number one, this makes discourse dog shit. That's number one. Number two is that we basically have a problem right now. We have a very real problem where people come up with inflammatory sentences like ACAB or defund the police or something like that, and then there's no follow through for pragmatic policy. And so I'm wondering, like Let's Go Brandon, for instance, is fuck Joe Biden. Basically, Doobie was saying the only rational fuck Joe Biden thing is COVID mandates. There's no COVID solution on the right. The COVID solution on the right is let's all get the coof. That's the COVID solution on the right. When it comes to ACAB or defund the police or any of that shit, the solution on the left is let's talk about defund the police and let's make such a toxic culture that basically cops back off and then crime skyrockets because of fucking COVID and now nobody's interested in the idea. That's what fucking happened with Democrats over the past year. So what I'm saying is inflammatory language, yeah, sure, fucking bring it up as a useful Machiavellian political tool. That doesn't seem to be the political tool that we're lacking in right now. The political tool that we're lacking in right now is real follow-up to get shit done.
Well,
Yeah,
Connor,
so
you and I
wait,
think
wait.
both agreed that the rhetoric around the left is poor. Like we can see that very clearly within black advocacy groups, where there are individuals who are on the ground doing fantastic work and just minding their business within their community and doing things within their community and have nothing to do with Black Lives Matter and Black Lives Incorporated. But unfortunately, due to the national propaganda that's being perpetuated on the idea of Black Lives Matter, it only has the impact of just fucking over grassroots organizations, because then they have to fight these battles that they're not equipped to fighting because they don't have these national press
secretaries that go up there and say like, well, even though there's like these people saying pigs in a blanket fry them like bacon, that's not us. That wasn't our movement. That's no one within our movement, and we condemn those actions. No one's going to see that tweet. They're just going to see like the national conversation of that.
Right. Connor, I need to address you really quickly here. I think it's important that the left uses obviously inflammatory language to get their political message across. But it's also important to have discussion within these circles of people who more broadly agree with each other to pick the inflammatory language that's rhetorically effective or not. But my point that I'm trying to hit home on is that inflammatory language has power. It has weight to it, despite the policy not getting passed or not. That's a failure of our democracy. But what I think is important to note here is that this language is getting noticed in the national discussion. There's a lot of shit I think is, optically nightmares, right? Like, I think the push for xenogenders and shit. I was on a panel where there were some crazy statements the other day about xenogender shit. I absolutely, don't think that that's something that the left should want to drive for or push for in terms of optics. But yeah, like a sentiment like Black Lives Matter, a slogan like that conveys a more broad message that most people agree with, despite it being inflammatory to a large portion of the population, being conservative Americans, which, yeah, there's a large portion of these people. I still think it's important that we use that inflammatory language to drive home our messages.
I want to jump in on this for a minute because, Dylan, I totally get where you're going. And you're absolutely correct in the regards that inflammatory messaging matters. What I want to do is I want to take video clips of you from this entire fucking stream and plaster it all over the right-wing media sites so it will just galvanize the base on levels you... Like, holy fuck, dude. Like, you are such a shining example of wonderful right-wing recruitment tools. It's amazing. I don't even have to do the job. You do it for me.
Epic. I'm a propagandist at heart. What can I tell you, Ty?
You're supposed to be
but you might
working
be a
for your
propagandist
team,
for the
dude.
wrong side.
Yeah,
I am working for my team.
Okay. So then let's talk about propaganda then, Dylan. Like, what within what's something that you're very passionate about?
Left-wing economics.
Left-wing economics. I can blast you 5,000 times in Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, and every single time you'd wake up and that'd be the first thing you advocate about.
Yeah.
What within the left is rhetorically ineffective, and how could this idea of having more charged language help propel that message forward?
Yeah, so I mean, there was sentiments going around. Like, I think an important one to bring up is the occupying Wall Street example, right? That's a slogan, that's a catchphrase we heard. People occupied Wall Street, and this got national media coverage, and it might not have done much to help us policy-wise, but these kind of sentiments drew attention to progressive economic causes in terms of like pushing for the like lower echelons of the population to get, something done. It did something. It had implications. We remember it. I'm talking about it right now.
It did something
positive or negative.
So okay, so
Can I
there's another
insult
part.
the
There's
audience in
another.
a second?
There's another part to this
He doesn't even
question.
know.
Is like what within your advocacy of charged language would you do with an Occupy Wall Street that could push that message forward outside of with moving beyond the idea of like making it very milquetoast? Like, what would you do? Is my question.
So I
So
guess
you made the observation. So to set the floor, right? You made the observation of what the context of was it. So now I'm asking you, what would you do using charged language to help push that message forward?
Okay, so in terms of what kind of charged language, because I think Occupy Wall Street is charged language. It has like political roots to it. It means something to people. But I will say,
so you would do nothing to amplify that to push it further.
No, that's not the case. The thing with these,
so
we need to get politicians on board to
rich?
agree with the sentiments, right? Look at fucking AOC, right? She wore that stupid dress to the Met Gala. People were talking about it, and she's one of those politicians who claims to agree with the left-wing sentiment about progressive economics. They got her in office. She had a grassroots campaign. They got her in office. Bernie Sanders, a senator, grassroots campaign, still in office.
So there's nothing that you would add to amplify that.
There's a lot of shit I'd change about this country, but a lot of it's
talking about
flaws
the
that we can't
language.
address.
I'm talking about the language within that. There's nothing you would add to help create a bigger spark there. Is that unless you said it, I missed it.
Well, I mean, I said that Occupy Wall Street as it was charged language.
I'm asking. I'm saying.
What are you thrusting at?
I'm trying to thrust that I don't know if Dylan knows what he's talking about. I'm trying to get to like a point of a
Well, you can just say
the
that.
idea of charged language, but I don't want to like just say that I don't even know what you're talking about. Like that's really fucked up for you even to pause it. But I'd rather him use his language and his words to get to that conclusion. But again, I'll try it in a different question. Like I believe that I don't think you believe in the idea of charged language being effective. I think that you do have examples that you can pull from. They're like, okay, this is pretty okay, but by and large, you might have some issues with that. So do you think that there is any issues with Eat the Rich? And if you do, what are some things that you would change rhetorically that it could be more effective?
Well, like the thing is I tried to address this earlier with the conversations we need to have within the left for what's optically viable and what's not when it comes to charged language, right?
So
like
is
I
Eat
said
the Rich
earlier,
optically viable?
that's going to have I personally don't think it is, but I mean, due to the amount of media coverage something like that gets, I still think some leftists find it politically viable, which I disagree with. I also disagree with things like for the push of, like ridiculous. There's a lot of left wingers who push CRT to be taught in like elementary school and shit.
Where?
They don't understand it. I've seen some stupid people on Twitter.
Okay, we're moving far. I'm gonna bring it back.
Fuck
I'm
them.
gonna
Nobody
bring it
cares.
back.
We've all seen many dumb fucks like that.
You agree
we
that
see
Eat
dumb
the
fucks,
Rich,
right?
You agree that Eat the Rich has its problems. So what would you change to optically charge that so it's better?
Joe,
Okay, so I mean, we have
just
the
say what you
sentence
say,
of
bud.
tax the rich, right? We have the sentence of tax the rich. There's a politically charged sentiment, and I don't think many
So
left
you would
wingers
change?
disagree
Would
with
you
it.
change Eat the Rich to tax the rich?
Yeah,
No,
well,
okay, but
people
nobody
use
gives
that
a shit about
sentence
that
all the
because
time.
that's not optically okay. Can I just answer the fucking question? The answering the fucking question, you would lead with "Eat the Rich," okay? Because that's a provocative statement. It gets the people going, as Will Ferrell would say, okay? So you fucking start with "Eat the Rich," and they're like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! What the fuck? You're talking about like violently consuming and cannibalizing rich people?" And then you go, "No." Okay, this is a hyperbolic statement. I don't actually stand behind the guillotine memes. What I really mean is that there are plenty of poor Americans who are they're subsistence. They're not getting what they need in order to survive. And in order for us to get people to survive in a way that I care about, we have to tax the rich at a higher rate, and we have to provide for the basic necessities of human beings. My entire problem with like extremist left-wing rhetoric is the fact that there's no goddamn follow-up. And on top of that, a lot of rhetoricians in the Twitch and Twitter politics space, they only believe in the aggressive rhetoric. They don't believe in the follow-up with policy. It's like, you're like, hey, ACAB. And they're like, okay, well, you have my attention. Now what? And they're like, I said it. All cops are bastards and we should kill them. Like that's the problem.
Where there's individuals who, like the individuals who are within these organizations who do these work to do the work to try to make society better are not the ones pushing slogans and pushing phrases. You just get kind of thrown into the zeitgeist, like into the conversation of like phrases that you might not even prescribe or even would use within your organization. Like there are plenty.
This is the kind of purity testing that I feel like fucks you all over, because on one hand you're like,
well,
the passionate people are too passionate, and the people who are doing pragmatic stuff are too pragmatic.
It's just the reality. It's just the reality. It's just the reality of the situation where people who are on the ground doing work for their communities don't have time and the patience to just like to spread propaganda about what they want within their communities, or even have like the
you don't think these people can't be put together to work together? That I think that's one of the chief frustrations.
They do the work, but again, my point here is that I can't think of a single organization that was grassroots that was able to dictate their own movement in terms of the language that made it out there publicly. Like there's so many people who like within my state who are in support of black, like however you want to call it, whether it be black liberation or black individuality or just not treating black people like shit, who totally denounce Black Lives Matter, who totally disavow Black Lives Matter Incorporated as an organization, think that the language is rhetorically ineffective and that we should actually focus on the policy prescriptions. And they've been complaining at the state legislature for years, but then they get roped into these things of having to defend something that they never defended in the first place. Like we see this all the time.
And Connor,
I agree with you.
This idea that we're going to like be able to use charged language, like use the Eat the Rich example, and then we walk that back to actually here's what we really used ACAB as an example, which I think ACAB is optically bad, though. Like I have my personal feelings about cops just from like my experiences, but that's aside from the point, right? An example that I would use is like defund the police, right? Like, that's very charged. Sounds like we want to just like take all the money out of police departments. But then we walked that back, right? We said defund the police. But what we really mean is that we want to reappropriate funds from bloated police budgets to other like social programs that have been demonstrated to reduce crime rates at a more cost-effective way. Nobody fucking listened. Nobody gives a shit. The strategy
or better yet, or we're on a panel
like it doesn't fucking work.
Or better
Well,
yet,
can we blame COVID a little bit for that? Because I mean,
Connor,
you guys
you were
did
there
get
for that, right?
logistically fucked pretty bad.
You were
the
there for the conversation.
I'm glad that Dylan brought up like Occupy Wall Street, because that's an example of a time that we did have a good slogan that people could get behind. But guess what? There was no fucking policy plan. There was no prescription. You went out and you interviewed people who were at the Occupy Wall Street thing, and you'd get like 50 different things that they want done. There was no like cohesive movement behind it.
Okay, but this is what I'm saying. We have
this is the problem with the left is we can either get a good slogan or we can get a good policy prescription, but we can never seem to like make those two ends meet.
Okay, but this is kind of my point, is because we're playing the blame game. I identify as a centrist, but there's still policies that I want to pass. I think recreational marijuana is a good idea. I think that having SWAT teams not be overused is a good idea. I think universal body cams is a good idea. But the thing is, I'm sorry that y'all got fucked, and I say y'all, leftists or left-wing progressive people. I'm sorry y'all got fucked by COVID. Because that's pretty much what happened. Was we had a crime spike after COVID, pretty much the same year that we had, riots and George Floyd and all that kind of shit, and crime spiked. So you guys were fucked. Defund is not going to happen, right? But at the same time, the point that's being made that law enforcement officers are jacks of all trade, masters of none, and sometimes they're incompetent, and they could use some backup. That is still a point that's well made, and that's a point that could be powerful if given the right push in certain communities. So what I'm saying is, if you can get the rhetorical people and the pragmatic people on the same fucking page and say like, hey, here's the rhetoric that we're going to use in order to fucking forward our agenda. Once we have the attention, this is the policy prescriptions that you need to tell people. That way they don't think you're a fucking lunatic on Twitter, as we've already mentioned a couple of times. That we have the technology to do it. We're literally on the technology that we have to do it right now. Discord, Twitter, fucking all this kind of shit, where organizing should be the easiest it's ever fucking been. But for some reason, it's still a gaggle fucking goddamn mess of fucking assholes with hot takes. Like that's what everybody's complaining about.
The organization's easy.
Who is the most rhetorically gifted like debate bro on the planet, and just like
Destiny. He's gonna lead all the leftists. All the leftists, all the socialists and the communists, they love Destiny.
Well, again, Connor, the frustration I've always had is that organization is the easy part. That's always been the easiest part. Getting people organized to something is easy. It's just easy. But it's the mobile, like, so let me rephrase that. Like, because I misworded this, but it isn't properly. Mobilizing people to a cause is easy. Mobilizing parents to believe that critical race theory is teaching kids to hate themselves because they're white is easy. Getting the organization of pushing policy to try to like make sure that doesn't happen in schools, parents learned, is actually the difficult part. Because one, obviously critical race theory was not being taught in schools, but other issues that were existing in schools around race did exist. And some organizations were trying to tackle that problem, but that's separate from critical race theory. But then what we saw is politicians reacting to this new base of people who were mobilized on something that they were already afraid of in the first place, and they were able to pass legislation for that. But that legislation did not come from the mobilization of parents. It just came separate from the politicians that were just building bills and stuff that were separate. It did have some like similarities and crossover, but by and large, like the parents weren't the ones that were complaining to legislatures about like, hey, you should have these laws and these are the things that they want. Like, no, the legislature wrote that shit themselves. They didn't need the parents to be galvanized for that.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about fuck electoralism? Because that's kind of where I'm at. Like it just seems like every single time that we have an idea or something's going on and this, that, the other, it just seems like it just gets co-opted by the fucking system, and then they either do nothing or they do something that doesn't matter. So do we give a shit about this? Should we be moving off of electoralism and more towards like mutual aid and community service and parallel structure building. Because frankly, like what I'm seeing is a shitload of people, like they pool like political capital and money and all that kind of stuff. They put it behind an elected representative. That representative gets elected. They have a diluted agenda that passes like 10% of what they originally promised they were going to pass. And that's all that fucking happens. So should we be saying, fuck the government, you know, fuck the feds, fuck the states, and let's go ahead and build our own parallel social structures. That way we can start taking care of our own people.
I think the school board model is probably a good way of going about it in terms of expelling members. I think that if you can get a certain percentage of your electorate, people who voted for these individuals in the office, say that, hey, we don't think this individual is best representing our, whether it be our district or the mayorship or even the council at large, I think it's very fair to say.
Joe, can we point out what you're talking about though? What you're talking about is pouring electoral energy and culture war energy into electing a single city council member in order to push an agenda about how we teach history. That's not the kind of impacts that we're talking about.
No, I'm talking about like here's what I'm trying to say. Like if you're able to get, I'll say 25% of your electorate, people who voted for an individual in the office, and say that, hey, I feel like this individual is unfit, I think that that's enough of a threshold for at least somebody to look into that and investigate it. Like and again, just to be clear, for school boards, anywhere from 10 to 15%. But I think for 25%, if you can get 25% of people who voted for Marjorie Taylor Greene to argue that she is doing an insufficient job at her position, I think that she should go to court for that. And please.
But this is what go to court to see if she could be removed or criminally prosecuted. What are you talking about?
Yeah, go to court to see if she can be removed from office.
Yeah, I think that
do we do it for school board members?
Do we not disagree that we should have checks and balances, that if our elected representatives aren't doing their jobs, aren't representing the interest of their constituents, that we should have checks and balances in place to make sure that they're not able to keep disillusioning them?
Joe,
well, I'm talking about a very specific thing that can happen in between elections.
Yeah, again, me too. We have things like, referendums and stuff.
No, don't. You gotta focus on what I'm saying here. I'm specifically saying that if you meet 25% of a voting body and you have the votes and your argument is that this individual is unfit to see office, I'm saying that from that point, they should be able to plead their case in trial and have evidence on both sides of the ball. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with the sentiment. Absolutely, Joe. I tried coming to back you up here.
Okay, so you're a little vapid sometimes. Just trying to make sure you're doing it.
Yeah, so the first part is, excuse me, I'm just going to go to the electoralism. I said this on this panel before. I'm going to say it again. This is more addressed to just answer the Connor's question, is that I'm not willing to give up on electoralism yet, but I think both parties are fucked and they have to figure that out. And then they have to make they have to make the changes they need to do. The Democrats actually might be too big, and you guys actually need to coalesce around a very specific platform that doesn't have literally everyone under the goddamn sun trying to vote for you, because then you don't agree when your representatives get to office. The right actually has the exact opposite problem. It's too fucking small. It needs to make itself palatable to more people so that they can actually build a coalition and win and put their policies through power. Because when they actually win, they can get it through, but they can't win anymore.
But wait, how did they clearly have won? They have a majority of state legislatures in the country by a large margin.
I'm more talking on the national level, because on the state level, they get what they want.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I would argue at the state level they're more nefarious. Like, I think that Republicans hide their power level, and so much so that they're able to get these legislative wins at the state level while people are arguing at the national. They found a way to perfect that shit. And meanwhile, while Democrats and Republicans are arguing at the national level, they're in there fucking pushing state legislatures in, they're pushing attorneys in, they're pushing AGs in, and like we saw like what happened in Virginia. Virginia's red now. And I'm not even talking about Glenn Youngkin and that nonsense. I'm just taking it at the state level.
Gun for guns, you dumb fucks. But Joe, this is kind of my point. Like, I don't know like where we're missing each other. Like, my point is, Dylan was bringing up like, hey, I think hyperbolic rhetoric is necessary sometimes in order to get people for your attention. And then we were kind of bringing up how like, we've gotten the attention, we've gotten the hyperbole, but we don't have any electoral wins or we don't have any policy wins. Then we kind of got into how like electoralism itself seems to basically mute the program. And you were saying like, oh, well, if we implemented this agenda, then we could at least recall elected officials better. My point is, let's bypass all this shit. fuck all this shit. Because like basically what's going on is like so many people spend so much fucking time fighting just to get one motherfucker in the goddamn fucking first place to pass a diluted agenda. Why are we wasting our time on this shit? I love thought experiments. I love fighting. I love politics. I love all this shit. But why the fuck aren't we focusing on like, hey, so for instance, like, I don't know, what's like a subject that you give a shit about? Like education or whatever? Like,
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so why aren't we more focused on like what can we do on the local level or as a Twitch community in order to get people focused on how to improve education or parental involvement in education in their local community, and how do we like leverage the dramatic bullshit of like who Hans hates personally right now like into real world action? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, to very short answer, the problem that I've identified is that parents are disconnected from their children's education, and the first step is going to be parents getting more involved in their children's education, but that also requires parents being involved in educational politics, which is vastly different than what they know as politics. Most school board officials function
But you already lost me there because you're saying like, hey, we're gonna get a bunch of disaffected parents who already don't even give a shit about their kids' education involved in educational politics. Like what?
No, like the first thing would be like if we're doing a step-by-step thing, the first thing would be school boards understanding that they are functioning under these like 1990s and 1980s framework. Like you have to go where the people are. And one thing that school boards have done by and large is that they kind of sort of sit in their ivory towers and think that people are going to show up to these meetings willingly. They're not. A lot of them don't even know that you exist until the election cycle. So something that what my district did, which I think is very fantastic, is do direct meet and greets and sit downs with the board members in an environment that is not within the educational political body. And that can be something as simple as just feeding people at meetings. Like one of the suggestions when the attendance went up was just providing free food to these events, and something just is doing that. Something that like is minimal budget wise. Like basically they spend like $50 for pizzas. People showed up and had conversations with their individuals. They also worked hand in hand with elected officials who were in the council. So council members also show and guide individuals like, this is how you participate in educational politics. But I guess like my big frustration is that there needs to be more transparency within schools, and that starts at the school level. And then at the same time, districts and administrations have to get more involved with parents, and that's going to be like reaching out to them and stuff like that. Like you can't really legislate that. But anyway.
Bringing back to the question just really quickly, like it sounds like the way to do it is not by insulting parents and demeaning parents. It's kind of
Correct.
giving that olive branch, right?
Yeah, Terry McAuliffe was R-worded when he said that like parents don't have a say in a child's education. That was politically the most inviolable thing that he said, and he probably lost a considerable amount of voters because of that statement. But granted, most people didn't like Terry McAuliffe already.
But okay, I'm not.
Sorry for context.
There's nothing you said. No, there's nothing you said. There's nothing you said that I disagree with. Okay, but like, turns out Demon Mama was completely right. Yummy food is the way to get people involved in education. Got it. But at the same time, like this is kind of my point. It's like fuck, man. Like. What are we actually going to do? Because so far, also, even with this conversation, you've just talked about like getting people additionally involved. Now what?
Well, I think that also like propaganda has to be perpetuated at all times, especially on the left. And the left has this idea that propaganda is only, and I'm not saying the left very broadly. By and large, I don't think every single left-wing individual agrees with the idea that like propaganda is bad. Like I think it's fucking fantastic, and the left should do it all the time, every day, 24/7. But by and large, like when it comes to spreading the propaganda and their message, the left-wing individuals are very ineffective. And then, like you mentioned, that's what I agree with you, is that once we get to a slogan, like we get a slogan or we get some decent propaganda, but we can never really get both. I can't think of a single politician modernly in my observable memory that had really good propaganda that was on the left, unless somebody has a name that they can throw out there. And for me, propaganda is effective that leads to actual change in communities that are they're calling for whatever it is. So like if you would have to like quantify within what Joe Biden said led to change and why that propaganda was effective, and then we can probably
but like local campaigns have like limited funding, so like they're trying to decide like how best to spread that message with the little bit of dollars they have, right? So even if you do have a good message, even if you do have propaganda, like organizing is very difficult on the ground level.
Okay, this is kind of my whole point though, because all I've heard for the past couple of minutes is like, here's how we organize better for more good electoralism. Like that's what I've heard, and so that's my question is like, that not only is that not a policy, that's not anything getting done. That's just getting more motherfuckers into the system. Like, what have we achieved?
Yeah, those are definitely more so guidelines, and the frustration kinds of with what has been talked about already is that we only determine if a strategy or a campaign or some sort of a rhetoric is successful after the fact. We don't
Right.
ever like judge any of those things at the moment and say that it's good or bad, because what we're really more so focused on are outcomes. So it gets like really, I get pretty frustrated or pretty annoyed when there's somebody like I'm gonna call you out, Dylan, who is like, yes, I think it is necessary for us to use vitriolic this kind of messaging when it comes to say like ACAB or Eat the Rich, or okay, maybe not you, because you disagree with that. I know that.
I
But these
disagree
kinds
with
of
ACAB
this,
too,
this
but
kind of this kind of language. Well, that's your position, right? And then when we bring up these examples of, hey, like here's this list of vitriolic messaging that did not lead to any results. Your response is, well, we just need to do it more because we don't know when it's going to work or not. And
so I'm gonna have
not
to
just like
respond to
it's
this.
just
I'm
like
gonna
a
have to respond
self-fulfilling
to this.
prophecy.
Wait, I'm gonna have to respond to this, right? And I just want you to think like logically about the alternative. What is the alternative? Going
The
up to
alternative is
people and
looking
being-
at public opinion polls and actually looking at what works or not, because we actually
Okay,
have
great.
that kind
I
of
would
knowledge.
I would
Yes.
love the idea if we could actually implement that shit politically, but the problem is when I think about so okay, let me finish for a sec. So what I'm trying to say here is that when people talk to each other, right? It's usually like I'm talking about discussions that average people have with each other, right? I'm not trying to talk about like, do I want politicians to endorse ACAB? Fuck no. But what I'm trying to say here is people rally around a common theme, and that common theme is something that needs to get to the forefront in terms of messaging. I don't think it's very politically viable for people to be super milquetoast about the kind of sentiments they express, because that's not going to garner the same kind of attention that something else, which might be a little bit more of an outcry, is going to get, like tax the rich. You have to have these slogans, right? These slogans are what get people's attention, get people thinking, get people involved in the discourse. Whether it's ACAB, which I think is politically inviable, politically not effective. There was a bunch of like young conservative people who got involved with politics because they were reactionary to that kind of sentiment, right? These kind of sentiments garner attention. And at the very least, I think it's important to start there.
Yes, but then here's the attention that you're going to be trying to garner in your position, is that like the attention is we're going to screw the opposition by saying that they're bad, they're unhumane, they're just terrible people, they're like Hitler, they're all Nazis, and then
Never really said that.
That's going to
Who's prescribing that on this?
No,
panel?
I think
that's such a ridiculous straw man to come at me with.
That's
because I
not
haven't
that's
come
not a
out here
straw
and said
man.
all right. Yeah, it absolutely
I'll
is.
side with
Joe.
Chao on this, but I think we can come a little bit down to earth, right? I think what Chao's concern here, and again, Chao, feel free to reiterate, so I don't want to put words in your mouth here, is that your argument here, I think, is that if there is a way to have better charged language, and you feel that somebody disagrees with a message, then what should be filled in instead? Like, it's very clear that we may have disagreements with ACAB, but then if you continue to posit the idea that, well, we should be using this charged language to get people in there, maybe there is a way to have better charged language to not only get people in the seats, but also listening to the argument. But I feel like you haven't seen that claim be quantified. Is that a correct?
Right. Okay. So
sure.
what I need is
Hold on,
also Chao.
I want to elaborate
Chao,
this
okay.
more, okay? All right. My issue really isn't with the charged language, but it's more of the vitriol. It's more of the hostility side to it. It's more of like the kind of opposition that I have problems with. And then like kind of maybe going more deeper into what you're saying is that, like, take for example a couple maybe 20 minutes ago, Spectre was talking about ACAP and how there was bad optics with ACAP. People were misinterpreting it. Even when Spectre comes out and he's like, yeah, this is actually what ACAP means.
No, I explained what defund the police mean. ACAP's just a bad slogan.
Excuse me. Okay, defund the police. All right, I'm gonna revise that. Replace all ACAP from like the last 30 seconds with defund the police. But even when explaining what defund the police actually meant, nobody listened. But then kind of the next thing that I would probably suggest is, why not use the word the phrase defund the police. Like, if you have a message and the intention is to get that message across a group of people because you want to spread that, and they don't get that message, then like I don't think it is really the best thing to do is like to blame them for not understanding and like just keep on using that message over and over again. You see what I mean? Like, that's kind of when you say, all right, what's the next slogan we do? Okay, we don't just like double down on a slogan just because we have some sort of a conviction, just because we have like this sense of, oh, we need to do it or else.
Yeah, so I feel like this might be a failure on my part to kind of add that I'm not against, or I'm not in favor of really extreme slogan or like charged language. What I sort of meant to say is these slogans that I've been trying to use, because I mean, the ones I've been using to try and push my point are like very moderate compared to like the really charged like sentiment of ACAB. But what I'm trying to say is these like rally cry slogans like tax the rich, defund the police, or anything in relation to police reforms, right? These kind of slogans are what rally people together in terms of getting a phrase stuck in people's head for political viability, as opposed to these like a long drawn out milquetoast interpretation of that. And I think it's important within the left wing.
Rally people together. Defund the police splits the left down the middle for including liberals in the left, because now we have like Biden and half of the Democratic Party saying that they actually want to increase police funding. I believe that Biden actually ran on that campaign promise, right? So defund the police does not rally people together. Again, people are confused by what we mean by that. What we mean is we go into cities that have bloated police budgets and we reappropriate those funds into social programs that are like, you know, demonstrated to actually reduce crime rates more cost effectively, right? That's what we mean, but that's not a catchy fucking slogan, right? So this idea that we're going to actually like unite people and get enough people behind like defund the police is ridiculous to me.
Right. So I think what's important to do is have these arguments within our communities about which slogans are politically viable. Like the tax the rich slogan, I think something like that is absolutely politically viable. And I think that a slogan like that has political power that can be used, right? People might disagree with defund the police. I personally disagree with defund the police. It's not important right now. But what I think my broader point here is that when we come up with catchphrases that get stuck in people's head, it's sort of that tautology kind of repetitive thing that people hear, and they start to think about it and they start to reflect on these things more.
Well, so I don't agree with that at all. I think that, like, okay, so if I'm making a coalition and it's myself, Chao, and Spectre, the three of us, if you put us in the same room about we'll put Jones in there as well. Like if we were all in the same room about, say, police abolishment, we would probably argue for hours about what the correct like slogan is. I think something that might be more effective is saying, okay, what is our message when any one of us goes out publicly and speaks? Because then you are getting a unified message across 4 individuals. So if it's something about, like, let's say our argument is about tires on police vehicles, and I would say we have to come to agreement, like, okay, what is our argument about tires on police vehicles? What's every possible way this could be misrepresented? And then how do we make sure that we optically go back to whatever our tonic point is? And if our tonic point is the police spend too much money on wheels and they should be spending it on other parts of the vehicle, anytime we talk about that publicly, it has to circle back to that point. I don't think it has to circle back to a slogan. It has to circle back to whatever the message is. Like a good example of this is Kellyanne Conway. Like one of the reasons why she's so frustrating is that she finds a way to circle all the way back to a general point and stay there forever. I think that that's way more effective than coming up with slogans. And maybe you agree with that, Donato.
Oh, can I help you out? Police serve us. There you go. And the whatever the centering statement or whatever is that being a police officer should be a public service. That's the way law enforcement should see it. That's the way the public should see it. And as a result, people shouldn't feel like they're enemies, and they shouldn't feel like their tax dollars are being abused. And so that entire sentiment literally could help center a series of conversation about like law enforcement, fiscal responsibility, police brutality, all that kind of stuff. Just saved you $500,000 in marketing consulting fees. I expect to get 2%. So see you in a...
Right.
Yeah, that might have to be held for the next subject though, buddy.
Yeah, sorry there, Connor, but I completely agree with you, but you're not getting your consulting fee. I will say though, yeah, I think it's absolutely important to come up with like catchy sentiments like "police serve us," right, and find ways to circle it back to the discourse. But when I think of like an advertisement or something that gets in people's heads, that gets people engaged with discourse, there's a very short idea, and then people are going to become more prone to exploring it once they get exposed to that general sentiment or idea. So like the police serve us one, for example, that would obviously circle back around to a sort of an argument on police reform, reallocating funds better to serve communities, things like that, right? But I think it's important to have that initial sort of sentiment that gets people involved with the discourse, right? The one that is digestible to people, that they can understand and absorb, and that way they get engaged with the type of conversations we're having, right?
Right. I don't know if I'm gonna get crucified for this, but I'm gonna circle it back to the topic of this panel. Is there any circle back to saying "Let's go, Brandon"?
No, we got off topic because "Let's Go Brandon's" boring as all hell. So I mean,
No, it's
that.
hyperbole.
Is-
It's hyperbole
Is "Let's
versus
go, Brandon"
effectiveness.
not like a sort of a slogan, a dog whistle?
It is a
that
slogan.
Yeah, it is, and it
conservatives-
rallied-
Okay, all right. So then that's
Yeah,
it's
it
related, right?
It's the right is now stealing basically what the Democrat strategy was, which is why it's hilarious to me that you were saying that it's like leftists who do this like vitriolic thing, when like the Democratic strategy in 2016 was like calling Republicans deplorable, right? The Democratic
Wait,
strategy
wait,
in
they took
2020
that.
Are
They
we
took that
are we
on
saying
Trump.
"Let's go,
When
Brandon"
Clinton
is
lost.
good?
No. I think what I
Okay,
think
lot
what
of people
Spectre is
point at
knocking
him and
at.
say that they
mongering
lost
about
because of
Donald
that.
Trump, was it not? Like there was very little about like Biden's going to do this, Biden's going to do that. It's like, do you really want 4 more years of Trump? Like that was the DNC's main message. Let's be super real.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
but I think what Spectre, I think Spectre has a point there, where like obviously language is going to evolve in whatever way like we see fit. So like examples of this, like if we want to go back to a time less it was fucking dog shit there. Like thanks Obama. Thanks Obama was a statement from the right. Galvanizing it anytime Obama did anything, it's like thanks Obama. And then the left was like, thanks Obama too. And then the left and the right were kind of looking at each other confused, like, wait, that's our slogan. And the left is like, well, we agree. Obama sucks. And then they just kind of moved the ball forward. Like other examples I can think of are like the basket of deplorables. They got reappropriated, and like the right like was proud to be deplorables, and like we are the deplorables. Other examples of this obviously are, God, what was it? I wrote it down somewhere. Like even like the situation with DeSantis, where very clearly, like he's not going to Brandon, Florida, because he wants to sign that bill because it's going to be good for the people of Brandon, Florida. No, in his state, he has a county called, or a township or whatever, called Brandon, and very clearly, like he wants to sign things that are against the Biden regime in a symbolic destination. That way, you not only get the idea of signing something that's going to support Floridians, but you're also going to get the idea of like people chanting "Let's go Brandon." And then like we mentioned before, it's that double language where it's like, are they galvanized for "Let's go Brandon" for their area, Brandon, Florida, or are they saying "fuck Joe Biden," or are they saying both? And this is what DeSantis did, like no different than like the idea of the Stop Woke Act that he looked to introduce, where like woke is a stupid, vapid term that I think everybody should fucking stop using. But very clearly, DeSantis sees that as like a rallying cry of like, oh, I'm gonna call this the Stop Woke Act, because it's not only invoking whatever the full bill's name is, it's invoking this idea of stopping whatever the woke agenda is. And he even alluded to that within his statement when he argued about it. And again, this is something that has nothing signed yet. What's up, Sean?
All right, Joe, I have a question. Do you think it is good for the right, conservatives, the Republicans, to be using "Let's go Brandon"? Like, is it going to be beneficial for them?
Yeah. Mostly because the right doesn't really have an agenda. They just have an agenda to not do whatever the left is doing.
Personally, I would say it remains to be seen. I think it's a little early, but I don't know what's going to happen in terms of, because it seems like DeSantis is, like, I'm just using DeSantis as an example because the only person I can think of who's really like pushing the button when it comes to using terms that are like sort of galvanized within the right. Because I don't know something like "Let's go Brandon" is going to stick beyond the general like Biden frustrations. I think that when conditions gradually, asterisk and 5,000 pages of fine print, but when conditions gradually improve for people under COVID and the Biden administration and just kind of goes back to, we talk about it, but it's not really in the public eye that much. I think people will probably discard the statement, but I could be wrong. Like,
What are conditions?
So, Connor,
Proving we're sitting here trying to get the Build Back Better bill passed, and this man's bragging about gas prices because he read like a fucking Politico article that showed that them going up was tied to his approval rating. Like, what? This is insane to me.
wait, which part? Almost.
That conditions are going to suddenly start improving, that Biden's suddenly going to get a handle on COVID like he hasn't.
Oh, yeah, that's my point. It's kind of like the point I'm knocking. Like, where maybe, again, that's why I said like it remains to be seen.
Yeah,
like,
I would say that.
Yeah.
I would say that for this reason, Let's Go Brandon is probably actually very effective politically. Like it gets the point across, right? Fuck the other side, and that's all that people like on the right especially care about. But honestly, it's easier to like mobilize a base against something in politics in this country than it is to mobilize them in favor of something.
I was about to say,
plays into their little persecution fantasy, right? Oh, we can't say fuck Joe Biden out
oh
loud.
damn.
Right?
Wait,
So,
but Spectre, do you think that's healthy for our democracy?
Huh?
Do you think that's healthy for our democracy?
Do I think that it's healthy that it's easier to mobilize people against something than for something? No.
Yes.
Do not
Okay.
think.
well,
All right.
Okay.
So then, like, I feel like that's
what's
really
healthy for our
important, right?
democracy isn't what's politically effective for one's elections. Unfortunately, if it were, we probably wouldn't have to have these conversations.
Okay, yeah. So then, do you have like any sort of an idea of how to deal with that? Like, do you feel strongly about that? Like, what is the ideal form of democracy, or like how we behave and whatnot, like decorum? That was a word that kept on being brought up.
The decorum and how we behave.
yeah, if there
like,
was
how our
actually
democracy
bipartisanship
functions.
and negotiation,
We could get every like every person that's in charge of like messaging for Republican campaigns and every person that's in charge of messaging for Democrat campaigns, and sit them all down in a room, and they can agree to a ceasefire where they're not going to use any kind of negative language about the other side. They're only going to talk about what they're for, and that's gonna just gonna be fucking like pancakes and blowjobs every single fucking election, I guess. Like,
hell yeah. Wait.
So
Yeah.
you guys think that
Okay.
so Chow, like what would you say about like the not my president thing that was happening when Trump was in office? Do you think that was like too far? These people
I thought
denying
that-
that this was their
I don't think
leader
it
It
or
was
like,
actually
whatever?
relatively polite.
I think it was stupid. Like Trump obviously was our
Yeah,
president. He
sure.
was in the Oval
But
Office.
it-
He was
but it was
making all of
something
our
that people could
executive
unite around,
decisions.
right?
Like people who were saying "not my president," they're just coping.
Obviously, people who say let's go Brandon are coping, right? They don't
Yeah.
like this dude. They want to have some way to say fuck this dude without saying fuck this dude. So they that's all it is. Like I think you guys are like tying this too closely to like effective.
Well, hold on,
political rhetoric,
because
right?
like
Like
before,
there's no argument being made with this. They're not even attempting to make an argument with this. They're not trying to call him out for his COVID vaccines mandates or for the gas prices or anything else. All they're saying is fuck this dude, which is fine. Sometimes it's okay to just say fuck this dude. People say fuck Donald Trump. It was totally fine for them to do that. I don't think everything needs to be in the vein of like, pushing policy.
Ooh, okay. So I just want to clarify again that in the very beginning, I stated that I don't think it's like that huge of a deal. Like I compared it to not holding a door for somebody when they're walking by. Okay, like that's how bad it is. It's not that bad. Okay, I'm not trying to make this a big deal. But what I think Connor is like kind of pointing at is that along with this, we do see that there is rising tensions between the two political parties. There are rising tensions between the ideologues. More people now think that it's okay to be using violence against the other side for political reasons. More now than ever before. Like, and we're going to be seeing this headline is that polarization in the United States has never been this high ever since the Civil War. The Civil fucking War. So then it was like, before Dylan here was saying how like polarization doesn't have to be that bad. Well, if you get it to the really extreme, then we could be literally at each other's throats. We
I hate to be the
literally
bearer
already
of
are.
bad news. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but extreme most things sucks. Like I think some level of polarity is good. It's up to us for making that kind of justification for how much polarity we want. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard these.
But I could say that because at an extreme level of polarity, you just said so, is bad, right?
Yeah, so it's up to us to argue
judge
about
what level of polarity is good or bad.
Yeah, so what I'm going to say to you is we have to argue about this because it's all about our perception of the argument. So you might believe something, I cannot unconvince you of that, whether you are firm in that belief and you don't want your mind changed. But we have to argue about these things to work out how much polarity is good, how much polarity is bad. It's not just polarity good, polarity bad. There's going to be nuance to an argument like that.
I wanted to get.
I'm fucking not
sure what
all.
you're trying to put on me. Like, I never said that it was that black and white, but okay.
Yeah, and
no, but you seem to be making it that black and white by saying Dylan said polarity good. Like,
Contra,
some level, some degree of polarity good, obviously.
Contra, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so here's kind of where we ended up. I kind of felt like Doobie dragged us back, but love him, respect him, all that kind of shit. So anyways, the point is that, like, yeah, maybe we made a mountain out of a molehill about like where's hyperbole and where's pragmatics, but I think the reason why we brought that up is because we have a shitload of fucking hyperbole in this country with very few pragmatics. One of the things that I wanted to mention was that the conservative position is actually a lot easier because we're conserving, we're keeping the status quo. Which means that all we have to do in order to fucking win is drag our feet in the fucking in the mud and we win. So that's kind of where the conservative positions are working from an advantaged position. My frustration with this conversation, though, is that we're dealing with progressives, leftists, and you're also dealing with centrists like myself who think that there are real things that can be changed and should be changed. And the thing about it is, we can talk about how hyperbole is not that bad and this, that, the fucking other, but the truth is that, like, there is a lot of shit that needs to get done, and we're not doing it because we're trapped in this fucked up little fucking cycle of basically being hyperbolic little fucking shitbags. So if I can have a conversation where I can say, like, hey guys, telling the president that he can go fuck himself to his face, especially when he basically has dementia and spends 90% of his fucking days eating mint chocolate chip ice cream, that's actually a bad thing and you shouldn't do it. I'm gonna say that shit. It might not be fucking popular, but I'm gonna say it. So how the fuck do we get from the hyperbole to something real? And the more important question that I posed earlier in the fucking conversation, the one that I want people in Twitch politics to start thinking about is electoralism the way that we want to go? Are we slave to the system where we have to go into our little local community bubbles and elect people that we don't like, whose agendas are going to get watered down? Is that the best way for us to be spending our political energy?
All right, Connor, because you've repeatedly asked this question so many times, I have no choice but to make this panel boring as fuck, okay? I hate electoralism.
Well, you only got 2 minutes to do it before we change subjects.
I hate the United States voting system. You know why? Because it's two-party system and it's first past the post. It's because it's first past the post and a two-party system that we are so concerned about the opposition. And we're not really more so concerned about, like, trying to get allies from maybe the more extreme sides of our respective ideologues, right? Democrats don't really reach out to the Green Party, and Republicans don't really reach out to the Libertarian Party, because what the first past the post system does is that it squishes the parties and to the middle, to the point where it's the middle person, it's the mansions of this world that gets to control what gets passed and what doesn't get passed. I would prefer a proportional representation. I would prefer a multi-party system, to the point where even the leftists could have their own political party, not complain so much about the Democrats not, like, be representative of them, because they could vote for the party that is, like, actually representing them. And it's the same thing for the right, it's the same thing for the center and whatnot. We don't have to be, like, so focused on an opposition, on, like, a single opposition, just to be clear.